Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy Markov, and I'm so glad that you have joined me today. I'm going to get started. I've shared my screen, so I think you can see everything, and hopefully you can see me too. But we're going to talk about something really important today. So we are going to talk about how to start well your first 90 days on the job. Now, this is obviously important to those that have been job seeking for new jobs because they are entering the workforce or because they were laid off. But it's also relevant to people who may have been promoted into a new job. So what we're going to be talking about is what you should be thinking. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to exceed the expectation of your new employer. And for those of you that have seen some of my previous sessions, I'm always trying to get people to get in the mind of their employer. That is very important for our long-term career success, is to try to get into the minds of our bosses, the powers that be within your organization, to think like they think. So the first thing I want to say is congratulations, you got this great new job, yay. Now the hard part starts. And I just want to sort of get this out there. I want to show you some research. This is by Inc. magazine, but it talks about the 7 reasons why people get fired. So the top reasons that people are shown the door. Now, this is not talking about whether or not people are happy in their job. That's kind of a different thing. But we're talking about the first 90 days. Now, I'm an HR professional, and one of sort of the golden rules of that profession is, in the first 90 days, if the person isn't a good fit, it's probably time to have that hard conversation, let them go. Because after 90 days, if it's not working, then probably not going to get a lot better. In fact, it's probably going to get worse. By that time, the honeymoon is over for the new job and everybody being excited to meet this new person. But if maybe they weren't honest on their resume or over promised on what they were able to do, or maybe they're not a good culture fit, we're going to talk about all these things, then it is time to make that hard decision, because the shorter period of time that someone's in an organization, we say, well, it wasn't a good fit. The longer people are there, it just gets more complicated. So let's just start off right now by saying, what are the top 7 reasons that people get fired? The first one is blunders on social media. So these aren't necessarily like in order of like the incident, but blunders on social media. So you get a new job, you're really excited, and then the luster kind of wears off and you say something about the organization or your boss, or maybe you're trying to be funny, right? Or the first day of work, you come back and say, oh my God, I made a big mistake, right? This organization sucks. Be careful about that. Getting negative, right? We can all be negative. There's always something negative, right? It's a beautiful sunset and then, you feel cold. So maybe there's always something negative to find. And we're going to talk actually about how you can protect your personal branding in the work, right? So be careful about getting negative. Acting as a lone wolf. So what does that mean? Like going alone, doing things on your own, particularly in the beginning. You may be in that industry and have done that stuff for a long time, but you don't know the culture of that organization. You don't know the history of why people do things. They may seem crazy to you, but I guarantee in my years and years of experience in HR and executive leadership, there's always a reason why people do things. Now, it may not be a good reason. And one of your gifts might be to figure out why and then to shift people into a better way of doing things. That could be the gift you give your organization. But acting as a lone wolf, going alone, doing it on your own is never a really good way to make sure that you have some longevity in that organization. Being late. You know, I talk to employers all the time. One of the things that just drives people crazy is people who are late. Don't be late for your first day. Don't be late after you come back from lunch. Don't be late the second day. Just don't be late. If you have a pattern of being late in your first 90 days, this is a big red flag. It's a problem. Don't be late. Disobeying your boss, right? This is called insubordination, and it is a grounds for termination. So be careful, especially when you're new. You disobey your boss, it's very easy to show you the door. So don't do that. Giving a minimum effort. You know, I remember hiring someone, this person had a lot of experience. We were very excited, but when they got on board, man, they were lazy. They were really not up to the pace of how we did things. And that was a problem. Using inappropriate behavioral language. Now you ask, what's inappropriate? Well, obviously, there are some things, you know, you don't harass people at work, and that's harassment, discrimination, bullying, you don't bully people at work, all of those things, sure. But how do you define inappropriate behavior and language? First of all, you're not going to be cussing. I mean, watch your language, watch your jokes. All of these things are important for everybody. But appropriate behavior should be defined by the mission, vision, and values, the handbook. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and make sure you're aligning with the way in which the organization interacts and communicates. What we're really talking about is you developing and then protecting your own personal brand. This is key to your success. So this is Warren Buffett. He says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll be doing things differently, right? So very quick. People could be very excited about your coming. In fact, I work for an organization and there was a new executive leader, and people were very excited about this person because they had some skills and experience that were needed in that role. But on their very first day, they were very offensive. They were dressed inappropriately. They just did things in a way that really was different than what had happened before, but not in a good way, right? So think about building your reputation. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's what Jeff Bezos said. And if you are not branding yourself, you can be sure that others are doing it for you, right? By talking about you when you're not in the room. So when you take on this new role, either you're new to the organization or this is a new role for you, you got a promotion, yay, it's all very exciting. But this is true. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So first impressions matter. You know, experts say that we size up people in somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, right? We make a judgment whether we're conscious of it or not, right? The actions you take during your first months in a new role will really largely determine whether you succeed or fail in that role. So if you want to make a good first impression, smile at people. What does it cost to smile? Well, it costs nothing. What does it cost not to smile? Well, it costs everything if not smiling prevents you from enchanting people. And that's your goal, right? This is Guy Kawasaki said this. You want to enchant people, but in the right way, right? At work. We want to make sure that we're appropriate. And I'm showing you this. This is from Bridget Jones' Diary, that really funny movie. Here's Renee Zellweger. And I don't know if you saw it. She goes to a party. Somehow she has the impression that it is a costume party or some kind of party. She shows up in a Playboy bunny suit, and look at the other people. I mean, it is clearly an inappropriate way to be dressing. It was unintentional on her part. She didn't get it. She didn't understand. She was dressed inappropriately. So one of the things you can start to think about is what is appropriate dress in your organization? And you start with the employee handbook. Follow the dress code. There's good reason for it. dressing in a different way because it shows your style or whatever. You let your personality shine with your style. You need to be aligning with the dress code for the organization and also what's appropriate in that organization. So there's some nuances. So a couple of examples. I used to do a lot of work for the banking community, and they have some strict dress codes. They want women to wear hose. They do not want low-cut shirts, dresses, or blouses. For men, they want them to wear suits, and there's good reason for it. And the idea is that they want to have their staff look trustworthy. They want tattoos covered up when possible. And I would work with a lot of emerging leaders or new people to the organization during onboarding who didn't like it. My tattoos are my style. Well, I like to wear, plunging necklines. And it was noticed. It was noticed right away, and it sets leadership in a dilemma. It's very challenging to talk to people about their attire and how they show up. It really is up to you to figure that out. It's really unfortunate if in the first few days or weeks of a job, your boss has to sit down and talk about your grooming. Right? Look around, see how other people are dressed, make sure it's all in alignment with the code of conduct, the dress code. And lots of times dress codes are there for very good reason. So in my work, I enter a lot of different workplaces for training and for consulting and coaching and strategic planning meetings. And so I learned very early on a couple of things. One, if I'm going to a manufacturing environment, I always make sure I wear closed-toe shoes or bring closed-toe shoes. I've been in situations where I've worn heels, maybe my toe is sticking out, or just heels in general, and I have been barred from entering certain parts of that facility because they have big equipment. Now, this is really embarrassing for me if I go somewhere and I'm not allowed to walk through the workplace where I'm supposed to actually do the work, and they have to rearrange where I'm presenting, blah, blah, blah. I learned real quick to bring closed-toe shoes or ask ahead. The other thing, I used to do I still do work for an agriculture organization. And the first time I did work for them was probably 20 years ago. I had just gotten out of graduate school, and I used to live on the East Coast. I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. I had all of these, Washington, D.C. kind of suits. I show up for this big training event. There's 75 people who work for a company in agriculture, and I'm wearing a suit. And I was there to talk to them about some very important HR and legal matters. Do you think they paid a lot of attention to me? Or do you think they were open to asking questions of me? I wasn't intending to be intimidating to them, but that was the effect. So fortunately, this was a series of like 6 meetings. So the next meeting, I had looked around and I seen most people wearing jeans, they're wearing button-up shirts and boots. I didn't have the cowboy boots, but I surely had boots, and I had, I might not have had the flannel button-up shirt, but I certainly had button-up shirts. And I talked with the president of the company who hired me, and I asked him, would you be okay if I wore jeans? And he was like, oh, will you please wear jeans? I want my staff to interact with you and not be frightened of your big suit. So, this is important to dress appropriately for the organization and within the guidelines of the dress code, because this is a way you can completely destroy the first impression, but also your reputation. Know and support the mission, vision, values of the organization. I'm going to tell you a story in a little while about how this can go wrong. During the process of hiring, whether it is a new job, new organization to you, or whether you are being promoted, it's really important that you're clear on the mission, vision, and values, and that you can align with them. There are lots of different ways to do different things. And in my position as a consultant, I go to, say, engineering firms who have completely different mission, vision, and values, and the workplaces are very different. So it's great to find a place where you can do your work, but part of your education process and learning, particularly about a new organization, is being clear on their mission, vision, and values, and being sure that they align with how you want to behave on a day-to-day basis. You spend as much time at work as you do at home. You need to build a good working relationship with your new boss. Hopefully the person was involved in the hiring process, whether it was internal or whether you came in from the outside. But during that period, everybody's putting their best foot forward. I remember going through a hiring process where I was very clear. I had been doing consulting work. I was going back to a full-time job. I had children in elementary school, and I wanted to find a balance between my work and my home life. I had children that I wanted to attend their sporting and performance events. I wanted to be there to help them with their homework after school. I didn't want to do what frankly is kind of my nature. I can become kind of a workaholic. And I had small kids. I wanted to be there for them. And I remember during the interview process, my future boss called me at like 6:30 at night, right in the middle of dinner, and had a lot of questions for me. And I thought, I'm not sure about this. Now, I will tell you, I did take the job. I worked for this guy for 7 years and I loved working for him. But before I accepted the job, not until they made the offer, I talked to him and I said, look, I just want to address this because I want us to set up a good working relationship. I have small children. I hadn't revealed that. And I said, I am yours, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. I'm happy to work extra hours as long as I have some control over that. I want to be there for my kids and my husband. I want to be at dinner every night. And it was great because he said, oh, I have kids too. And every one of my executive team has children. And I pride myself on being a family-friendly employer. And he said, I called you at that time because I had just been to one of my children's performances at school. And he said, it's also, your interview process is a test. So he was testing me. But I think he also appreciated that I was willing to negotiate for my success in the organization. In fact, we had a very good, honest, straightforward, and productive relationship. In fact, he's become a friend of mine. So what I'm telling you is you need to work at developing this good working relationship, and you have the right to negotiate your success. So this means carefully planning, a series. It's not just one conversation, but a series of critical conversations about the situation, expectations, different work styles, what resources are available to you, and your personal development. This is really important. I'll talk about that in a little while, but how are you going to grow, develop, and unfold in this job? That's worthy of an honest conversation with your boss. And you have the right to begin that process and negotiation. So let's talk about having a boss. Here are some ways to manage up. This is from the Harvard Business Review. You want to communicate your priorities and seek feedback. Now, seeking feedback is really important. We'll talk about feedback. It doesn't mean that you're going to get all your priorities met. And this is important. We spend so much time at work. In fact, I was just listening to an economist talking about Keynes. I think it was Maynard Keynes, or I can't remember exactly who he was talking about, but it was about 100 years ago, right after the Great Depression, a very prominent economist discussed what he saw for the future prosperity and wealth of the US population. And it was written in 1930, so in the depths of the Great Depression. But what he saw was this great era of prosperity. And in fact, so many things have come true, what he said, in terms of our material wealth, our comfort. I mean, even if you may not be making the money you want, we have running water, we have electricity, most of us, hopefully. this is the goal actually of workforce development, is to ensure that people have their basic needs met. But the thing that he said, this economist 100 years ago, that people would have more leisure, that isn't the case. We are not getting as much leisure as, say, we thought, or wealthy people in the past. In fact, they say people who are more affluent actually work more than anybody else in terms of hours. So the message is, it's work, right? You can communicate your priorities, but during the hours that you've agreed to work for your employer, you need to focus on the priorities that they set, hopefully with you, and seek feedback, because sometimes it's not realistic, right, what your priorities are. But it's better to know that and have that honest conversation with your boss than to be harboring resentment against it. So again, goes back to developing that productive working relationship with your boss. So communicate your priorities and seek feedback. Then you want to anticipate your boss's needs. This is, you need to get to know them well enough to anticipate what they need. I had this brilliant assistant, and she and I had different working types, but we were so compatible. In fact, that's what you're looking for, that you can find the ways that you support one another. But this assistant of mine could anticipate my needs. Now, that was the best job security on the planet. You want to make your boss look good by anticipating their needs. Understand what makes your boss tick. Right? What are they really looking for? What do they need? What makes them, really feel satisfied and feel like you're creating value for the organization? Know the right way to discuss problems with your boss. So this boss that I loved, we both were comfortable with conflict in a way that we could disagree with one another. We would talk it out. Sometimes it got quite heated. We never yelled at each other. Neither of us ever got our feelings hurt. But I could really, air out the problems. But I knew he was the boss. And when he said no, he would call me Kathleen. Kathleen, we're going to do it this way. Okay, then that's it. No more debate. I'm going to do it. But that was unique, right? And what is the right way to discuss problems with bosses? Unfortunately, I had a boss once who we knew he was a drinker. And after we'd have like a binge, he'd always wear this green sweater. And down the hallway, we'd all say, he's wearing his green sweater today. Stay away from him today. We knew that was not the day to talk to him. Now, you know what? I left that job because that is not a healthy work environment. But what are the things? You may know that right before your boss goes into a big meeting, it may not be the right time to talk about problems. Maybe your boss likes to go out to coffee and talk about problems. Maybe your boss is more visual than verbal, and it's better to send emails. Figure out the right way to discuss problems or communicate with your boss. There was this one man that I worked with, and he was a brilliant engineer. And the owner of the company, this guy did not report to the owner. He was in one division, but he had some skills that were very unique. The boss would send email to him asking certain very technical questions. And the guy would write back like 10 pages, right? And the boss would never respond. Well, when I talked to the boss said, the guy's brilliant, but I can't figure out what his emails are trying to say. I ask a question, I kind of want like a sentence or a yes or a no, and I get 10 pages. It was too bad because they never got on the same page. And the guy who was really brilliant ended up leaving, which actually the boss said, oh, good, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I know the guy was brilliant, but he couldn't discuss problems with me in the right way. It's about the boss. What's the right way to discuss the problems with the boss? And you can communicate your priorities too, but know at the end of the day, you are there to meet your boss's needs. Learn how to be a source of help. Be the person that your boss relies on. Right? I've had some bad bosses, and I've had some wonderful bosses. And I had this most amazing woman that I worked for early on in my career. And we did not have HR, but it was always my leaning. And she would actually seek me out for counsel on certain things that were going on with the staff as if I were her HR person. And so, I was a source of help for her. I would do some research on the labor laws. I would provide some perspective for her. And, we had a great relationship. I did move on from that job because I moved. This is when I was in Washington, D.C., but I'll tell you, she's become one of my best friends because I was a source of help for her. So, we spend a lot of time at work, and I keep saying it is work, but it can be really fulfilling in our life. And one of the ways it can be really fulfilling, I think the best way is to form that real close bond with the boss. So we talked about your reputation, right? And making that first impression is very important too. You've obviously made a first impression since you got the job, but maintain that by being consistent and then expanding your involvement with them in these ways. Another thing you want to do is in those crucial ongoing conversations, not only at the beginning, but particularly at the beginning, I want you to think beyond your job description, right? Work with your boss to develop a realistic 3, 6, and 12-month plan for your performance. So this is based off of a best practice for hiring and onboarding. And not all organizations know this or do this, especially here in the Central Coast of California. There are a lot of small organizations. They don't have an HR function to guide them through the onboarding process. But truly, employers need to think, what do I expect out of this person in the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And if you haven't been presented with that type of plan, this is a great way that you can add value and develop that relationship with your boss by having and initiating that conversation. What do you expect out of me in the first 3 months? What do you expect out of me in the first 6 months? What are you hope a year from now? What do you hope that I can know? What do you hope that I can do? Who do you want me to become in this role? But here's the caveat. You never want to overpromise. It's very easy to, I can do that, I can do that. And then all of a sudden you are just set up for burnout. Under promise, but over deliver. So you want to set those expectations so that you can not only meet them, but exceed them. So this is what is meant by being realistic. Don't take on too much. You're setting yourself up for disaster. So what's really important is that you're the guy with the binoculars. Observe and follow the leaders, both formal and informal. You want to identify who is the person that has the respect of your boss or the other organizational leaders. Ask yourself, what do they do to succeed here? Right? Learn how to act to be successful in the organization. Now be careful. It's not the smart aleck telling the jokes that everybody laughs at. Really take your time here. Learn how to act to be successful within the organization. And you want to form and create coalitions. Start right away by identifying those whose support is really essential for your success. What I'm talking about here, it's not just, obviously, your boss is important, but every person has a sphere of influence. Who are the peers? Who are maybe the people that might report to you or people that play supporting roles that are underneath you? They may not report directly to you, but that's important. What about other departments? Finance, HR, marketing, these administrative functions of the organization. Maybe you're in those departments and developing alliances with certain department heads or assistants within the departments is going to be very important. So who are the people that need to support you for you to be successful? And figure out how to line them up on your side. So these may not be the people who you like. In fact, you may not like them. These may not be the people you want to be friends with or go out, outside of work for a beer with. In fact, I had somebody who I really relied on who, we personally did not have anything really in common, but professionally, we just supported one another, and it was a great professional relationship. So I say this a lot to people when I talk about professionalism. It's important that you set strong professional boundaries. You're not there to meet your best friends and find a social network. If that's what you're thinking work is, a place to find friends, I'm sorry about that. You need to develop some hobbies, do some other things, get your own network of friends. You're there to work, not to expand your social network. So set these professional boundaries and develop those strong professional alliances with people that do complementary work to you or people that can support you in your success. It's very important. And you want to manage what I call your corridor reputation. I got this from a woman I work with on some USAID training programs, and she'd been working for USAID for over 30 years now. She's a trainer, and she's excellent. It's managing your corridor reputation. This gets back to that idea that, it's okay for people to talk about you as long as they're talking about all the great work you did, not, oh, I dressed inappropriately, or you hear that. And I'll tell you that, I do some coaching and I work with bullies. And one of the things about bullies, and I'm not saying that you're a bully or you want to be a bully, but I think the principle is relevant to everybody. Like, you might say something inappropriate. It's very unlikely at work that's going to confront you unless it's your boss. They have power over you. So your coworkers or people that aren't that invested in your success will just laugh or ignore you. They're not going to keep you in line, right? That's not their job. So managing your corridor reputation is important. And this applies to virtual work as well. So you want to identify those whose support is crucial to your success and take care to perform well to gain positive attention from them. And that is attention for the good work or your good attitude or some value, the gift that you add to the organization. So I'll tell you a brief story. I was on this USAID training with this woman I told you about who talked about the corridor reputation, and I'll tell you how it came up. So we do these trainings on a platform. It's not Zoom, it's called Adobe Connect. And on Adobe Connect, for these trainings, it's very content heavy. There's a lot of small group work. These are intense training programs that can go 8 hours a day for 2 weeks. So imagine 80 hours over a 2-week period, all on Zoom. Our job as trainers is to make it not absolutely morbid. And honestly, I think we do a good job. But what that means is that it is very dynamic, the learning environment. And we have a lot of different things going on at the screen. So we do not allow cameras. So no one sees my face, no one sees anybody else's face. In fact, it's pretty good because usually this is Washington, D.C. time or Singapore time or something, and I can roll out of bed. I don't have to worry about getting camera ready. But nevertheless, you have 20 people. We have 20 people online. We cannot see their faces. They've sent in pictures and things like that. And again, it's very interactive. People actually get a lot out of the classes. But there are many people. Some of the classes we teach are for people who are relatively new to the organization. They're also required courses. And so we have this interesting dynamic where we get people who've been with the organization for less than a year, and some people who've been there for like 15, 20 years because the course wasn't taught, and in order for them to keep their job or become certified, whatever, there's a whole training, they call it training architecture. They have to have this course under their belt in order to get their raise or whatever they're trying to. So we have this dichotomy here of these people have been here less than a year and people have been there 15, 20 years. So in this one class, we had this one woman who'd been there for 7 months, and her boss's boss, who had been in the organization for 20 years and was the division chief. I mean, it's not in the executive suite, but it's as high up as you can go in this division. This person had worked their way up. And in this class, part of what we were talking about is the organization's approach to project management, which was rooted in their core values. So we were talking about the core values, right? We talked about mission, vision, values. These were the foundation for the organization's approach to basically all of their development work, their project management. And on this platform, we had a woman who, she hadn't been there long. She had never met her boss face to face, only over Zoom and different platforms like this. She had never even been to the office in Washington, D.C. She was living somewhere in the Midwest, right? I'm not sure she knew that her boss's boss's boss was on the line. And she began to question when we got to that half-day session on core values and mission and vision for the organization. She kind of went off talking, being very critical of the work that was being done, even accusing some of the language, like why do we use that term, not understanding the history of it. And she was vocal. She wrote it in writing in the chat. And all the trainers, and we were sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, she's killing her reputation in this organization, right? Her reputation went right down to bad, right? And so this is something that whether it's live, I think when you are coming to an office and meeting people, you have more methods of communication, right? The nonverbals and the tone of things is more complete. But online, especially if you can't see people, you're not sure who's on the line, I would use extra caution to make sure that you step back, right? Stephen Covey says, seek to understand and then be understood, because a lot of the things that this person was saying were really detrimental to her reputation and her corridor reputation in the organization. So your reputation really is everything, not just in your organization, but in the industry. People talk. And the best way to set yourself up for success is that people talk about the value you add to the organization, not the issues that you create, no matter how right you think you are. So some of the complaints had to do with language around inclusion and diversity and there was some changes that this person wanted to see. I think everybody agreed that there need to be some changes. But then the question is, how do you go about that? And just joining an organization and really having a meltdown publicly is probably not the best thing to do. And when we're online, it's easy to sort of sit in your living room just looking at a screen and rant. So you want to be careful always, but particularly if you're in a virtual setting. So, again, I'm not saying don't tackle the tough issues, but it is how you do it and add value. The thing I always talk about is what is your gift to give? In fact, with this particular person, I saw that she had a great gift to give the organization. It wasn't the gift itself. It was how she was trying to give it and whether or not people would take it, because actually the way she was behaving made you not want to listen to her. So this is very, very important. The other thing is take your time and learn prior to, overcommitting yourself or saying things that will be hard for you to kind of mend later. Consider the cost of getting the resistance to your initiatives or the gifts that you want to give. Trust that there's a reason that things are the way that they are in the organization and that change will take time and likely be incremental. So I've worked for organizations where I had people really push for overnight change. Yeah, there are some things that there's overnight change, but really the best change happens when there is enough time for consensus and then a lot of monitoring and helping and training people to make the change. So, if you're really having a problem with the mission, vision, values of the organization, it's actually on you to think about whether or not you should stay. And, in your first 90 days, you get in, you're not happy. Hey, time for you to make a change too. So, give yourself that permission. But it is very important that you take your time and start with learning. So this here, I love this. This is the work of a woman named Carol Dweck. And she talked about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And basically what we need to overcome, we collectively need to overcome a fixed mindset, right? A fixed mindset says either I'm good at it or I'm not, or I like the way we've always done things, or I'm afraid of failure, this kind of thing. Nowadays, and there's been research on this, we are the generation, it was actually Thomas Friedman who wrote a book that was called Thank You for Making Me Wait. And what he was talking about is that nowadays, we are bombarded with so many changes. There's always been change in the world, right? My grandmother came across the United States in a covered wagon from New Mexico to the Colorado border. She saw a lot of change. When she passed, she was using a cell phone and texting. So, think about all that technology. But what they say now is that the people living today are having more change imposed on their personal lives than ever before. And there's some things that we love, right? We love the internet. We love access to all this information. I love streaming movies. We have these Philips lights that, have all these, it's like being in a movie theater in my house, and it's great. I love all that. On the other hand, I'm being completely bombarded by my electronic leash. I just got a new telephone number. It didn't take 2 weeks for the what do you call it? The advertisers to start calling me, and I got a new phone number. So because all my voicemail was filled up with advertisements. So this kind of thing, right? But we need to have a growth mindset. We can't fix our mindset in, I like the way it was. No, things are progressing. And so we need to have this growth mindset that says, I can learn anything I want to. You can learn anything you have to, right? You're going to be 95 years old with a couple of years to live. You're going to be in an old age home, and they're going to come in and say, hey, we got a new phone system. And you're going to say, I don't care. I'm not going to be here long. I don't want to learn the new phone system. And they're going to say, we're going to teach it to you anyway. That's just the way it is. And learning can be frustrating. So we need to learn just to pick ourselves up, to be kind to ourselves. Deep breath, start again, right? When you take on a new job, it is a challenge, right? You're going to fail. And you got to look for those opportunities to learn. And it's going to be exhausting, right? You're going to look for the little wins and build upon that. And know that your effort and your attitude are going to help you to really succeed. But sticking to the way things are always done is really, really dangerous. This is a wonderful picture of this woman. Her name is Grace Hopper. She was born in 1906 and she died in 1992. And she's really awesome. She was a mathematician and a rear admiral in the US Navy. She pioneered computer languages. She helped devise several different kinds of approaches, including UNIVAC 1 and COBOL, which was actually 1 million years ago, one of the first computer languages I learned before, we have coding in the way it is now. But basically, this woman is a genius. And what she said, the most damaging phrase in language is, it's always been done that way. And this was from speeches that she used to give at the age of, I don't know, she's in her 80s there, inspiring people. So, the thing that's important to this is, as you're getting ready to assume this new job, or if you're just starting this new job, in your mind, begin to break away from your old job, right? And how you always used to do things, right? No one cares how you used to do it unless they ask you directly. Maybe they hired you because you have a specialty skill that they want to learn about. Okay, well, that's different. But don't just offer, well, this is how I do, this is how we do. Oh, it's so much better. You know, you're going to romanticize about your past job. Maybe you won't, but you might. And so it's important that you don't sound like a dinosaur, or that you're committed to the new organization. Or worse, you could come across patronizing, like you have all the answers, right? The know-it-all is rarely the most respected person in the organization. And you want to act and aim to be the most respected person in the organization. And a lot of this comes down to culture. So, you know, culture is how the assumptions and the behavior net the results of the organization. So you want to, when you start, be careful about learning the wrong types of learning. Get on the right types of learning. You know, the technical parts, they will come. If you spend too much time focusing on that, you're missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is why? Why do we do things this way? The culture and the political dimensions of your new role are vital. First, figure out what the heck is going on in this culture, and then align yourself with that, right? I talked about this. Think about, what are the gifts you have to give to the organization, and what's the best way to give them? I told you about this woman. I think she had a lot of great things and perspective, but her ranting about the organization was not appreciated. And what happens in that case, I think in that organization, it's probably unlikely that she would be asked to leave, but it is likely that she'll go nowhere. She won't go anywhere because she had gifts to give, but she didn't do it in the right way, and it shut a lot of doors for her. So, you know, you might be thinking, oh no, what have I done? Look, the most important thing is that you know you're going to have successes. You know that you're going to have failures. And a way to really increase the possibility of success is to match your strategy, the how you do things, with the situation. Why are they doing things here? Who are the people? What's the power structure? How's the best way to give my gifts to the organization? And to have the mindset, right? We talked about attitude. This is a great way to think about things and improve your attitude. There really is no failure. There's only feedback. Okay? And feedback is kind of like a loop. You get some feedback in, you do something with it, and then you get another feedback. Hopefully you're going up, 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 getting better and better. It's not about not making mistakes, right? It's about recognizing it and doing it better the next time. Right? Focus on the future. This is this great boss I had. I would make mistakes all the time, and he would talk to me about them all the time, but he never made me feel bad. You know why? Because he didn't talk about the past. He talked about the future. Next time you do this, why don't you do it this way? Next time you talk with that person, don't talk about it that way. And I would say, oh my gosh, what did I do? We're not going to talk about what happened in the past because you can't change it. Let's talk about the next time. The next time you do that. And that, you know, it was a brilliant supervisor, because sometimes you make mistakes. You think, oh, it's all over. I'm going to get canned. But then if he's talking about the next time, I think, oh, he's giving me another chance. I better just do it better. Now that's great feedback. Most people don't know how to give good feedback, but it is important that you use your 5 senses, you know, mostly hearing, eyesight, the feeling that you have. You know, did that go over well? Did that not go over well? Like, this is why you need to develop camaraderie with other people. Say, hey, how do you do this? Right? This is really, really important. Go out there and try. No failure, just feedback. The other thing that is really important, and it's something that I mentioned before, and it's a good professional practice anyway, but you can start that conversation right away. I said, when you're having those critical conversations with your boss, right, to define your plan for the next 30, 60, 90 days, first year on the job to just be discussing, what is it that they want? How do they want it? How can you work well together? Take advantage of every opportunity for professional growth. Most organizations provide training opportunities. And I'll tell you, because this is my field of expertise. Now, not all organizations, but many of them do. It is a best practice. And often an organization, they might mandate training, and preventing harassment training is going to be there, but particularly some leadership topics, that kind of thing, they're usually optional because the organization wants to know who are the people in this organization that are really committed, who are the people that really care enough about themselves to invest the time in it. So, every organization is a little bit different, but you want to be that person who's willing to invest in themselves, even maybe on your own time or even on your own dime. You will be gaining valuable skills that no one can ever take away from you. And you will demonstrate to the leadership of the organization your commitment to the profession. And, you're starting off a new job. That's great. I want you to grow, develop, and unfold in that job, but also, expand your professional network for other opportunities. And being part of professional development experiences, whether in-house or out in the public, are really great ways to do that. So even if you're taking a class at City College or Allen Hancock or wherever, let your employer know that you care about your professional development, that you're seeking those kind of opportunities, what kind of support could they give you. Some organizations cannot provide internal professional development, but they might be willing to pay some of the tuition costs if you get a good grade. I don't know what you can negotiate or what's in place for your organization, but definitely take advantage of every opportunity, create your own opportunities, and let your employer know that you care about your own professional growth and development. I love this picture. This, to me, I don't know where this picture was taken, but I grew up in Santa Barbara, and in my mind, it's at Ledbetter Beach. I'm there with my mom and all my little girlfriends from elementary school, and we're building these kind of sandcastles, the ones where you take the wet water and drip, 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 drip. That's how you kind of think in the beginning. You want to build on small wins. Be careful about taking on plans that are so ambitious that the risk of failure could really destroy any possibility of you providing any gifts in the future. So they talk a lot about having some wins, but start small, because these little teeny wins can really start to build up into something big. So things we can do to set ourselves up for success. Become more self-aware. Nobody's perfect. Be aware of your strengths and the gifts that you can give, but also be aware of your tendencies to do things in the ways that are not really productive. I tend to talk too much. I tend to try to get too familiar and friendly with people. When I start a new job, I hold back on that a little bit until people get to know me. But that's me. But are you the kind of person that is shy and is not really wanting to go out and meet other people? You may need to find venues and opportunities to feel more comfortable to do that, because it's going to be important to build those alliance relationships for you to really, get into the organization and be successful. Develop your emotional intelligence. And this is a message to everybody. Right? How do you respond when things don't go your way, or when you get stressed out, or that kind of thing? And know that when you first take on a job, it can be really exhausting. And there's a learning curve, which we're talking about. Be kind to yourself during that period. Make sure that you are getting enough sleep, that you're eating well, which means not, watch the alcohol intake, the sugar intake, eat a lot of vegetables. This isn't a nutrition class. But I can tell you that it is important what we are what we eat. and too much caffeine, too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much party. You may want to let loose at the end of a day from a new job, but be sure you're getting enough sleep and that you're not dragging yourself in the next day, and that you are not responding in a way that is commensurate with the reputation you're trying to build. Really, that's what emotional intelligence is. Employ the platinum rule. This is do unto others as they would like you to do unto them. A little bit different than the golden rule. The golden rule is lovely. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let's turn it around a little bit, though, in the age where it's so important to consider being inclusive. So that also implies think before you act, ask questions, do unto others as they would like you to do unto them. This is another way we get around, well, I've always done it that way, right? And this last one, teach your third eye to see, to understand what's going on. And that's why I put this picture here, your third eye. So when I talk about that, that's the perspective that you can gain. So you're in the situation, you're being authentic. That's very important. You're demonstrating respect and empathy for others. You're following the rules, but you also have the ability, what I call your third eye, right? To step out of yourself and sort of judge, well, how are they responding to me? Oh, well, I said that and I saw that, their body language shifted a little bit. What does that mean? Maybe it was inappropriate, right? I thought it was a joke. Nobody laughed. Okay, you notice those things. That's your third eye. I sent this long email to my boss and they're not responding. Maybe I need to go have a face-to-face or get them on Zoom and talk about, I sent you that email. I want to make sure that I'm communicating to you in a way that you want me to communicate to you. So would you like shorter emails? Would you like, and they might say, oh, I'm sorry, I was just busy, or, whatever. I was in that all day training or whatever it is, or, there might be something else that you need to know. So remember, everyone is in transition when a new person arrives. So what can you do to help everyone to adjust? And being self-aware and being aware of what I call that third eye is process observation, checking in with people. How's everything going? So, it really is a time to begin thinking about your first day in the new job, your first few days. What do you want to do at the end of the day? Right? Then move after the first week. What do you want to do? Then at the end of the first month, the second month, the third month, right? At the end of 6 months, at the end of a year, where do you want to be? Start to think about that. This takes some self-reflection, right? And make yourself accountable to learning more. Understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, your interests. This is all really important when you start a new job. And most importantly, be kind to yourself, right? Because if you're kind to yourself, you'll be kind to others. So here's a resource that I think is great. A lot of the materials, not all of them, this is my material, but this topic is very well covered in the first 90 days by Michael Watkins. It is great for anyone starting a new job. It's particularly great for leaders. Maybe you are walking in where you're getting somebody else's team. It talks about that. There's a whole bunch of things it talks about. It's a great book. So I highly recommend it. So with that, that's it. I hope that you start well in your new job. I'm so thrilled that you got it. And now is the time to begin to think about how do you prepare yourself to be successful in this job. So I want to thank you all for listening. This presentation is posted on the YouTube channel for the Santa Barbara Workforce Development Board's America's Job Center of California. I've got several ones up there. I don't know, there's lots and lots of them now on all sorts of topics, from how to access services in the workforce to resume writing to this, which is congratulations, you got that new job. Now let's get our head around how we're going to enter into this workplace, stay there, and reach our career potential. I want to thank you. We have a Survey Monkey, which is listed there, and this is for any kind of feedback. It's my pleasure. Again, my name is Kathy Markov from Markov Executive Training, and I wish you well in your new job.